Psychic Awakening Engine War introduced the concept of associating one of your characters with the classic Adeptus Mechanicus orders. This was something that existed in the lore for a long time, but we had never actually seen it implemented in-game. It was a really exciting and powerful ability that was prone to much controversy up until even the current day. One of the most pondered changes in the new codex is how they would treat these orders. How would they change them, modify them, keep them, or discard them altogether? We're here to discuss that today, so let's take a look. As I mentioned, these orders were extremely controversial for a number of reasons when they first came out. The way they worked is they're essentially a series of 4 warlord traits, each associated with a different order. We had the genitors, we had the logi, we had the magi, and we had the artisans. And each of these warlord traits actually contained a subset of 3 warlord traits within them. The way it would work is at the start of each battle round, you would pick one of these warlord traits to be active for that character. Really powerful abilities, especially since each of these warlord traits had some extremely powerful sub-traits within them. Later on, of course, they would be addressed so that you could only have one of these in your army, but nevertheless, were extremely powerful warlord traits that you would see in virtually every single list for the Adeptus Mechanicus. In particular, we are, of course, looking at the ability to give exploding sixes to hit when shooting within a 6-inch bubble. Really powerful, so let's take a look at what happened to them. I really like the changes that they did. They've actually moved these order abilities from warlord traits to a chapter command style points upgrade. What this means is you can now once again have all 4 of these because they're not limited as warlord traits or anything like that. You just pay the points and you can upgrade a keyword tech priest model in your army, and that's that. Now the way they work now is similar but different, I'll just say. The way they work is they come with 3 abilities. They come with 1, a command point refund for a specific type of stratagem. Some of them might be war gear, some of them might be strategic ploy. It basically just refunds you CP for points. Then that's a pretty big deal, especially since Adeptus Mechanicus is a very command point heavy army, and so gaining a command point in many ways by spending some points and getting other abilities, big win. So they all have that. They each refund different kinds of stratagems. Second of all, we have the other 2 abilities that are very strange. You no longer just get to pick which ability is going to be active each turn. You have an initial part and you have a secondary part. The initial part is, of course, the warlord trait that's activated when the game begins. These are very powerful abilities, and there's actually often you might want to just sit in them because the second part is not always associated with the first part. It's not necessarily a smooth transition from one ability to the next, where it's like you might want to be shooting and then charging, or like moving and then shooting. They seem to be very mismatched in their design, and the second part is actually pretty difficult to access. The way that you switch from one of these parts to the next is by performing an action. At the start of your command phase, this tech priest can start the action, and it completes at the beginning of your next command phase. This means that entire turn you're faced without moving, without shooting, without performing any other actions, obviously, but also without your auras, which are extremely important and one of the main reasons you take these abilities. For this reason, I find myself making lists that actually don't rely on the second part. Because they are delayed, because you can't move, because you lose so much, I find myself largely just building things around the initial part. Luckily, they are extremely powerful. So what I want to have us do now is actually walk through each of them, talk a bit about their implications, and just get that information out to you guys. I'll be curious to what you think. Alright, so the first holy order that I want to talk about is that of the genitors. And these guys are all about genetic modification. They do a lot of things with Cataphron servitors. This is one of the places where we actually see some interaction with those units, where we don't see it in much of the rest of the book. So first off, their CP refund ability is called Adaptive Mastery, and this reduces the cost of a Adeptus Mechanicus battle trait stratagem by 1. And this, of course, only activates on the first time you use it. The second time you use the stratagem, it will be at full price. And the battle tactic category is things like the +1 attack for your Sicarians. It's the auto advance 6 inches and shoot without penalty for things like your Iron Striders. So a couple of really powerful strats in there that you just save a CP for. At time of writing, this one costs 25 points, so that is an exchange rate I would take any day just for the command point. The initial part of this ability is called Learnings of the Genitor. And the way this works is it's called biochemical aggression, and you essentially select a Forge World Core or Forge World Cataphrone Servitors unit within 6 inches of the model in the command phase. And until the start of your next command phase, they essentially auto-wound on 6s to hit. Not anything crazy, to be honest. The advanced part takes a different turn and actually makes them more defensive. This is called hyper-cybernetic physiology. That's right. And this essentially, you can select the same types of units, and it grants them a 6-up feel no pain. Now, it would be potentially interesting if you could start off with this right at the beginning of the game, but you do have to spend that action to get through to it, so I'd probably give this Genitor one a pass if it was me personally. Next up, we have the Holy Order of the Logi. And the Logi are really the big data scientists. These guys are all about logic. They're about predicting things with massive amounts of data. Awesome. So what do they get? Their CP refund is called Scriptural Prognosis, and it gives you a CP refund of 1 on a strategic ploy stratagem. These are some of the most powerful stratagems in the book. You have things like the stratagem to fall back with raiders after they are charged. You have a lot of the really just kind of sneaky stratagems are all available in this section. We have Fight Last via Electroshocked. We have the Deeply Sunk Talons to actually have your Taraxi pin different units, the ability for Sicarans to get picked up within a board edge and appear in a board edge the following turn. Just a lot of really powerful stratagems that you're going to be using every single game. This is pretty amazing. It's clocking in at 35 points at time of publication. And what else does it do? Honestly, if this wasn't already good enough, this next part is the real reason that I actually have been putting this in almost every single one of my lists. It's called Analyses of the Logos. And the initial part is Predicted Barrage. This essentially grants immunity to -1 and -2 rend to a Forge World Core unit within 6. Really powerful ability, basically gives you some of these Sisters of Battle durability and makes you really, really, really durable against small arms fire, things like bolters, even when they're in their appropriate doctrine. Now the advanced part, again, not as interesting in my opinion. This is called Flaws of the Foe, and you select a Forge World Core unit or Cataphrone Servitors unit within 6, and until your next command phase, they have ignore cover with their range attacks. Not amazing, especially for a unit that still is only hitting on 4s and not getting rerolls. So honestly, just take this for the first part and stick with that. The Order of the Magi. This is the infamous one that used to give the exploding 6s in a bubble when shooting, and now, how the mighty have fallen. It definitely has uses, but it's much more specialized than it used to be. These guys are of course about protecting secret knowledge, esoteric agendas, and things like that. So they're very protective of things, right? So how does this translate to the battlefields? Their CP refund is called Aggressive Subroutines, and this gives you a CP refund of 1 on an Epic Deeds strat. These strats are not as common as the other 2 that we mentioned. One that you might consider using is the Data Blessed Auto Sermon, that essentially allows you to give a particular canonical to a unit even if you've already used it, in addition to the current one. Now this is normally a 2 command point strat, and so reducing that to 1 is actually really, really nice. You do have situational ones such as the 4+ Feel No Pain against vehicles, or on vehicles from mortal wounds, but like I said, overall, these aren't as interesting as the other categories. Now what else do they do? We have the Divinations of the Magos. This is of course the name of that infamous warlord trait. The way it works now is in the initial part, we have the ability Predatory Programming. Select a friendly core unit within 6 inches during the command phase, and it gives them +2 to their advance rolls. Kind of cute, but again, you have to be next to them during the command phase. It's an okay ability, but nothing to write home about, especially since you cannot advance and charge. The advanced part is actually the one that we've come to expect, and this is called Overloaded Safeguards. This is no longer a bubble of exploding 6s. It is a pick 1 within 6, and it has to be a core unit. 6s explode to shoot. All right, cool. So severely, severely nerfed. It's still there. Again, though, I have to say this Magi one is one of the ones that is the least interesting, and I will be taking it not very often. The last Holy Order is one of my favorites. This is the Order of the Artisans. Naturally, these are all about artifacts and relics and different specific kinds of machinery that they've crafted over the millennia. Well, what do? Their CP refund is naturally Archaeotech modifications and refunds 1 command point on a war gear stratagem. Makes sense, right? These have some amazing stratagems in them. They have things such as the Chain Taser protocols, which give the exploding 5s to hit. We have Seismic Bomb for the Archaeopter Fusilov. And we also have one of the ever popular Galvanic Volley Rifle strats that essentially turns your Skantari Rangers from heavy 2 to rapid fire 2. A lot of speculation about that stratagem currently, and of course this is going to be a lot of good value for this ability. This is a 25-point upgrade. Absolutely worth it just for that CP. But what else does it do? We have Fabrications of the Artisan. This is the primary ability, right? The initial part and the advanced part. The initial part, and this is one that I've taken in almost all of my games, is called Enhanced Biomechanical Interface. And the way this one works is essentially pick a Forge-Rolled Core unit or Forge-Rolled Cataphront Servitor unit within 6 inches during your command phase, and it allows them to fall back and shoot, but you're going to be doing it at -1. Cool, well that's great. But you know what else it does? It also allows them to charge after that. Really, really powerful ability. You do have to be sticking next to this character, but incredibly strong for a number of things, especially things like Corpuscari priests that can fall back, shoot, and ignore the -1 penalty because that's built into their profile, and charge right back into combat. Really, really scary. The advanced part, again, is not bad, but I think this initial part is just so powerful, I'm really hard-pressed to not just stick with it. The advanced part is called Exquisite Calibration. This is select a Forge-Rolled Core unit within 6. Notice that this one does not include servitors. And the way this works is it gives you just +1 strength on your shooting attacks. Now, I think you'd have to have a specific thing in mind for this, but it could be, it's a tool that's available. I think most of the time you're just going to sit inside of this initial part, getting that fall back and shoot and charge. An incredible ability. So that has been the orders, now part of chapter command style rather than warlord traits. Overall, I think it's a great change. I think they're really exciting. Some of these are absolutely army changing, army defining, and are going to be really fun to actually build around. Do let us know, as always, in the comments below if you like this video, what you thought of it, and also what are your plans for these orders? Do you have a particular combinations that's going to be very nasty or very fun or very thematic? I'm excited to try these out on the tabletop very soon. As always, if you did enjoy it, do like and subscribe, and if you want to support the channel even further, you can of course hit the join button down below and get additional content every week, including voting on our Tuesday matchup, where we play things such as these new Adeptus Mechanicus builds. I'm gonna go test these things out. I'll catch y'all next time on the tabletop.